Getting eliminated is not what you want, obviously, to happen. I'm ready to start a restaurant. I'm fighting for that, to build something to show off my heritage. My father's from the island of Jamaica. My grandparents are from there. The possibility of being the top chef is still on the table, but I gotta take out Kat. She's been in the top 3. She's proven she can get really creative. Kat, don't get caught slipping today.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. Thank you for pushing play on my pod. Just a reminder to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on all social media channels. And like and follow on your podcast player of choice so you know when things are coming up. My guest for today on Eat Your Content, I'm thrilled to have Chef Corwin Hemming on. He is a private and pop-up chef and recently on Top Chef Season 22. He's Brooklyn-based with deep Caribbean roots and Michelin pedigree. He brought artistry, heart, and spice to the Top Chef kitchen. We're going to dive in beyond the show and see his experience from his eyes and hopefully hear some good stories from it. Chef Corwin, thanks for coming on to the pod.
Rich, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for your time. So you describe your cooking as contemporary Caribbean, shaped by your Jamaican family, military upbringing, things like that, and your background. How difficult was it to balance cooking your style and your food, but also trying to cook what the judges liked and trying to get you onto that next episode?
I think there's a lot to figure out once you're, a competitor. You can watch as many seasons as you want, but ultimately when you get in, you have to want to represent yourself. You have to have an identity as a chef. And you've got to cook food that Tom, Gail, Kristen, or whoever the judges are, can understand, resonate. And then also you have to match the challenge. So you can go in there and do what you want. You can cook your food, but if you don't stick to the challenge, they're going to let you know. And so there's a lot of variables about Top Chef that ultimately you have to kind of put together a dish, go shopping really quick at Whole Foods, prep, execute well, and then, cook. And it is a lot. I thought it would be easier, but there's so many variables that are out of your control that ultimately dictate what direction you go in, and it was tough. I'm not going to lie. Being in a different kitchen every single day, having different rules set for every challenge. There's so many things that you're all right, yesterday was yesterday. I need to quickly reset. If I got to win or if I was at the bottom and I'm still in, I've got to reset and figure out the next day because you just don't want to, exist in the bottom. That'll just kill your confidence. And so there's just so many things to figure out. But me personally, I wanted to utilize as many Caribbean products, Caribbean dishes, techniques in my cooking as much as possible. And I feel like I did that. I was always trying to find a way to get something in there, even though, I was given an apple in one challenge or we were doing poutine. I'm not going to let that shy me away from having my personal style or my identity, be in the food that Tom, Gail, and Kristen, were ultimately eating.
Yeah. And I think a high point in your journey of Top Chef was that Quickfire in episode 4. You had that seared scallop. And I think that really put you on the map. You were high on my draft list. I don't know if you listened to my podcast, but me and Chef Savannah had a draft and you were kind of high up on my draft. And I think episode 4 with that scallop dish really, for me, cemented who you were as a chef. Are you particularly proud of that dish? Did you find validation after you kind of got the first couple of episode jitters out of your system? Did that dish were you especially proud of that one when you heard the feedback from it?
Yeah. I knew it was going to be a hit. Did I think I was going to be in the top 3? You never know. You never see what other chefs are doing. And when you don't get your name called for the top or the bottom, you don't get feedback. So in, those last couple of challenges, I was trying to figure things out. And I know, when you're making mistakes, when you're not timing things properly. And so when I put up the scallop dish, I had done a similar dish in the past with apples and scallop. And it's just a classic combination that I knew would work. But I did it for a restaurant that was very catered towards a specific type of clientele. So this gave me the freedom to be I'm throwing Scotch bonnet in there. I want to do an agua chile. I'm going to use the chili as, Scotch bonnet. And, I've just got to not mess this up. I can't make it too spicy, but I can't not go for it. And I remember there was a point where I was tasting my food and me and Vanny were kind of chatting side by side. And, I tasted it and I was just keep going, go harder. And I did challenges back to back with scallops and I was in the top 3 for both. So, kudos to those who cook scallops very well on Top Chef, because if you don't, the judges are going to let you know. But yeah, that ultimately gave me like a lot of validation that like you can go for it. You know, whether you do a cold dish, hot dish, whether you do low country food, it doesn't matter. There's no rules. So long as you execute well and you plate something that looks really good, I think you'll have success in the challenges.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this incident because I feel like it'd be malpractice of a podcast host for me not to ask about it. We interacted early a little bit on Instagram during episode 2. I had recapped that episode with Chef Savannah, and we talked about you serving plastic to Daniel Boulud on your chawanmushi, and I kind of gave you a little lighthearted ribbing. I'm like, man, don't you just want to feel like crawl into a hole? And you're like, and you responded back and you said, you need to know the whole story. So I'm going to ask, what's the story? What happened? Like, how does that happen? I get when the clock is ticking, you're kind of like mine's going 100 miles an hour. But how did that come about? And at what point did your heart just sink?
So that challenge started off, somebody stole my pot like right out the gate, and I like was livid because it was the only size pot that like I could actually braise that I needed for the pork. It was like perfect. And I remember like prepping my ingredients and running to the hotline and looking, and like there was like milk and somebody's making cheese, and I'm like, who the F stole my pot? And I was livid. And so that set me behind because, you know, each specific challenge, there's like hard rules, like you can and can't do. And if you violate those rules, you will not be eligible to win. And so a lot of playing the game is playing the game the right way, not trying to cheat, not trying to, you know, sabotage, not trying to do things the wrong way. And I wanted to like pour the pot of milk out. And so it just, that I want to say set a snowball effect for me of like, I came in hot, like emotionally, and was like vexed that like somebody would do that. And like, I didn't want to go home. And the other team was like, they just kind of didn't care. And I'm like, all right. So that initially is what happened. And then timing issues, you know, I could have bullied a little bit more. I could have did other things to like be like, look, I'm not going home today. You guys can figure it out. But I ultimately didn't. And, you know, I got saved. Ultimately, me and Vinny ended up switching ovens, and it was a little bit too late. And I served Daniel Boulud plastic, and I had to watch that on camera. I don't know if you guys saw on that episode, but I was like unraveling, you know, to the last second. I was burning myself. I literally just pulled these hot bowls out of the oven. And in my head, I'm like, you're not going to serve this. Like, don't serve it. And my team was like, just put it up. Like, don't DQ us because you want to only put up the perfect ones. And Tristan specifically was like, serve it. I don't care. Serve it. And I think that kind of saved us and gave us a winning chance, even though I like royally like I thought it cost us $35K. I was for sure in my head, like, you're going home. This doesn't matter. You messed up. There's a thing. I can blame the pot. I can blame all these other variables. But the reality of the situation was like, I could have went faster in the beginning and then caught my mistakes later. But instead, it was a snowball effect of me just like having to like figure things out. And, you know, we have a culinary production team. I'm asking them questions, and they're kind of like, look, like you're dealt a shitty card right now, and we get it. But like, you just got to go. Like, don't sit up here and blame it on anything. Just go. And it sucked. I got through it. I put up what I thought was, you know, a dish that I would have never served in my own restaurant. And so that was ultimately just a humbling experience that, you know, lives on TV forever. But it wasn't, I don't think that was how I naturally exist, because in a restaurant, there's 1,000 ways you can mitigate a mess up. You know, I'm not going to let that go out of my kitchen to a guest. I'm going to refire it. I'm going to, you know, talk to a front of house manager. I'm going to do so many other things to make sure that guest experience is well. And very quickly did I learn that like Top Chef Kitchen doesn't care. Like, you got to, once the timers go off, put up your dish, sink or swim. And I ate it on the chin, and I'm just like, I don't know if you saw the reaction of when I didn't get eliminated. And I was just like, this is crazy. I don't know what they talked about behind stage, but I really, to this day, I want to know what they really behind closed doors talked about that I didn't get eliminated right there. But I'm glad I didn't, because I went on to like, you know, have put together a couple strings and win and really get to showcase my strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure you were going home on that episode. I mean, like, you're serving plastic to Daniel Boulud, for God's sake. Like, how do you stay in the competition? But I mean, you're on the winning team, and I think that's what saved you. But I was like, that's I don't know if you had watch parties at your house or anything, but I was picturing in my mind that you're watching this episode with friends, and you paused it, and you're like, okay, wait, here's what happened.
That's literally what happened. 100%. I was having a watch party. I was with like some close family and friends, and they, you know, I kept alluding to the fact that like, look, We'll talk about it after. Do not ask me any questions during. We'll talk about it after, because this was like, that was hard. That was tough. Like Lana, I remember like mid-challenge, after we had put up our dishes, we had a second brunch swing of guests to feed. And Lana came over and like put her hand on my back and she was like, how are you feeling? And I just looked at her and I was like, shitty. Like, I'm going home. Like, this sucks. This is not how I want to represent myself or go out. And she was just like, man, she just felt how like shitty I felt in the moment. And yeah, when I didn't get knocked out, I was like, you can't let that happen again, Pound.
Right. So you went out on episode 5 due to some not salt cod fritters, because you couldn't find salt cod. So you tried to salt some cod and it just pulled moisture out, and the fritter didn't come out the way you wanted it to. And it's not like you got eliminated necessarily for anything bad that you've done. It was just the available products at the time. And also, too, I think you just ran into a buzzsaw of contestants. I think this season, outside of All-Stars, any All-Star season, is probably the strongest group of chefs in recent memory. And just luck of the draw of being there. But, you did have some really good back-to-back wins coming into episode 5. You were on a high on episode 4 and then a low and eliminated on episode 5. As you're hearing those words, pack your knives and go, after having such a great high during the couple of previous episodes, what were your immediate thoughts as you were unfortunately being escorted to Last Chance Kitchen?
It sucked, that I had to go out on product quality. You heard me cursing on TV, like when I went to the butcher's counter and they were like, we don't have salt cod. And I immediately like sprinted over to Kat and was like cursing, like, oh, fuck, like this sucks. Like, all right, we can pivot, but we're on a timer while we're grocery shopping as well. And so we had to just put together an idea, and we're like, well, we can't scrap the idea in totality. Like, let's figure out something. And we didn't have enough prep time to realistically salt our own cod. Like, I was like, let's just make a mix. Like, let's just do some type of fritter mix and figure it out. And the judges, they ultimately didn't like it. It sucked in the moment for sure, because, I was coming off of a couple of strings of wins, and I thought that me and Kat worked our asses off, like working with her that episode. I was like, look, I didn't think we were going to lose. I thought if anything, we would just exist in the middle. But specifically that episode was the first time I think all of the chef contestants tasted each other's food. We were like in that park. It was a beautiful day under the bridge. We were like passing food to each other. Massimo and Paolo were arguing their faces off in the corner. And we're all like, all right, like whatever. This day's kind of like awkward, but I didn't think we would lose. And so to get my bell rung, like when I'm like, I felt like I was just getting in a stride. Like had we had salt cod and we would have got over the hill in that one, I would have been like, I'm definitely for the marathon latter end of this race. Like I would have thought that I would have gone to the end there. But yeah, it sucked. It was like me and Kat like backstage. I was quiet. Kat was crying. We like gave each other a hug. And I'm just like, oh man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But after watching on TV, watching Massimo rub sugar on the short ribs and call that browning, I was like, I've got to keep cooking Caribbean food, because like that in no way, shape or form, like, is that acceptable? Like that's not the technique of browning, which means that like, if that's willing to pass through to the judges, they don't know enough about Caribbean cuisine, which is why I'm even more ecstatic that Tristan won, because I don't think that they knew what he was doing. Like he was really out there making injera. He's doing these crazy double sauces and they're loving his food. And I'm like, they love the flavors. They need to learn the techniques now, because in no world is that like even acceptable. Like imagine me making pasta dough and like putting something crazy like sugar in it and being like, well, like, I learned it from the restaurant, and then come to find out that's not the truth. That gave me more feel to be like, oh, we've got a lot more work to do. So I'm like, it sucked rewatching it and saying like that I thought we executed to the challenge better. I thought that we executed towards the cuisine better, regardless if they didn't love the texture of the filling. To me, doesn't make sense. Like execution is what drives Top Chef. I think Tom knows that. And so to see another team execute something that wasn't Jamaican food and beat me, I was like, no, not in a million years is that ever going to sit right in my soul. So like that lit a fire under me to be like, you got to get back on the wagon and like keep doing what you're doing. Tristan winning is like proof in the pudding. We've got to keep going, because if he can win it, there's no ceiling now. We just ripped the ceiling off of what Caribbean cuisine can be. And you're seeing restaurants pop up in London. You're seeing restaurants pop up in New York City, Quaba. and all these people are doing like fine dining Caribbean. I'm like, we've got to keep going. There's more work because we need to educate people on the techniques now.
Yeah. Sugar on ribs is diabolical.
Crazy
That's
work.
nuts.
Oh my God. My ancestors rolling in their grave. Crazy work.
Crazy. So I got a couple of final questions for you because I know our time is coming to an end, but I want to ask you, how do you think the Corwin that walked into Top Chef Kitchen day one compares to the Corwin that walked out?
Oh man. It made me see myself in totality. Like I'm like, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Perfect timing. I was feeling stagnant, and I heard Schwei talking about that a lot, in watching the later episodes, being like, I felt like I was washed coming into this, that like I didn't have any gas in the tank or anything new to create. And Top Chef gave, I think, all of us that spark to be like, look, this is not your end all be all, like, and it shouldn't be. And if it is, like, you mentally, like, you were trying to hash something out with yourself that was never going to hash out. And so I think, walking in day one, I was like ready to go to war, got knocked down quick, picked myself up, fought back. And, it led me leaving that Top Chef kitchen, leaving Canada with like a new invigorated soul of being like, I've got to get back to like what made me successful as a young chef, as a young cook. I need to surround myself with people that are going to like push me to be better. I just want to be around people that see me for who I am and understand like what I'm trying to ultimately do. And I think that as soon as I left, I had to make clear-cut decisions about my future, what I want to do as a chef. And I did that. Me and my wife are like, what do we want to do with our lives? Like, are we staying in New York? No. Okay. Why? Because we want to have kids. We want to buy a house. It's just not working out here. And so we moved, bought a house in DC, moved back home, closer to family, closer to real friends. I opened up a historic landmark in DC at the Occidental. I was on the upper management team there. And so that was a good way for me to like recut my teeth as a chef and kind of prove it to myself that like, all right, you're on Top Chef. Let's reinvent yourself. Let's like figure out what makes Corwin successful long-term. Now I'm in a point where I get to dictate what I want to do, all because of going on Top Chef. I think had I not competed on this season, I would still be in the mud trying to figure it out, frustrated with a lot of things. But Top Chef, like, it made me see crystal clear, like, this is direction you got to go in if you want to get there. And don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let anything dissuade you. Now it's like I've proven to not only myself, but the chef world, people watching, fans, that, I can cook what I want to cook and be successful. And so I'm elated for the future. I can't wait to put out some announcements about some things that I've got in the works. But yeah, man, shout out to Top Chef for like lighting fire under all of us and giving us a second chance to like be creative again. I think that that's the most important thing about it.
Nice. You found yourself on Top Chef and you're going that direction.
Yep. 100%.
Great story. So I want to give you the last couple of few seconds here just to promote anything you got going on. As you continue your journey post Top Chef, where can people follow you to see what you're going to be doing next in your life?
Yeah, so I got a couple of really exciting things coming up. You can follow me on Instagram at Chef Corwin Hemming. I am currently involved in a new restaurant opening in Washington, D.C. that will feature island cuisine with a little bit of global soul. And so I'm really, really excited to let you guys know about that. It was actually another opportunity that was in tandem with a chef who was featured as a guest on Top Chef. And so like the two of us meeting was like, God aligned, like it's crystal clear vision. And I'm really, really excited about this opportunity. I'm also competing in cooking for the Food and Wine Festival, DC. It is led by Chef Eric Ajapong, at the owner of Elmina DC. He's one of the spearhead chefs for this big thing. And so July 17th, 18th, and 19th, I will be cooking for that. I'm going to be doing the rice section. There's going to be a bunch of different installments. Some people are going to be cooking their version of oxtail. Some people are going to be cooking rice dishes. And so there's going to be so many things going on in DC for that. If you look out for it, you can follow my Instagram, and I have a bunch of posts up for information for that. And so, yeah, a lot of things working this summer, a lot of things working for the fall. I'm super excited for what's next. And, thank you for bringing me on, Rich.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. I look forward to seeing all that on your Instagram. And just a reminder, folks, to follow me on socials at Rich Ferrer and at Eat Your Content for all things food and pop culture. Chef Corwin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and good luck to everything you got going on next.
Let's do this again soon, Rich. All right.
Absolutely.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support.